What we do here is go back.
I thought of drawing some water, but
Still hurts, Steve.
It does. I still cry at night, but. But let's get into some Raider talk on the Raider Take podcast. So Micah, this was a great thing to emphasize and take a look at. It has been a little bit, obviously, since we talked, but also since we just said, hey, this is what the roster is, this is who our players are, and then these are the new faces, so let's take a look at those guys. And so what we want to do is break down kind of like, hey, based on the new acquisitions, which takes into consideration free agents and our draft class, right? So new people, new players on the team, even unrestricted, sure, it's fine. They may not make the list, but who is going to basically meet, expectations that are above what we thought when we brought them in? That could be based off where we drafted them, based off their contract, etc. And then who's really just going to be steady at exactly what we thought. Thank goodness they're there. And then below expectations, like, hey, drafted you high, paid you a lot in free agency, who might be a little disappointing. Got to be realistic, like we talked about. So let's start it there. And because I've been talking for, I think, the last 47 minutes, I'm going to let you start. How do you want to do this? You want to go below and then on positive, or high and on a not so positive?
Let's start below and then move our way up to get some
He's
positivity.
An optimist at heart.
Let's end with positivity.
So I will say that we have not shared our list. So Micah, I agree with that direction of going below expectations. So your guy, new addition, new face that's going to meet expectations a little bit lower than that.
Yeah. So my player that's going to be below our expectations, starting off with a not so good direction to go with this. I think it's going to be Alex Leatherwood. And here's why. Because one, he was drafted in the first round as a tackle. So that, and that is coming off the heels of Trent Brown leaving or getting, released. And, he's basically expected to come in and be Mr. Savior, Mr. Fill in there. And he's going to be starter day one. He's also moving over to play right tackle because he has played left tackle and guard his whole college career. I think that he's going to be really good. I think he's going to work into that position. I think year one, we're going to see something similar to Colton Miller, where he's, has maybe a rough first season, and Colton got hurt a little bit and whatnot. But I think that coming into this being first round draft pick, filling the void of this tackle that we just paid a bunch of money to be the highest paid tackle in the league, and then, he leaves. I think there's so much expectation that it would be almost hard to actually meet that or exceed it. So I think even though it is a very good pick that I like now after stewing on things for a while, I think he is going to turn into eventually, like we see where Colton Miller is now. I think that's going to be Leatherwood as well. Year one might not be, I don't think it's going to be up to par with what people are expecting. And they're going to be coming for his head probably 4 weeks in, when it's like, he's okay, but he's struggling a little bit. But yeah, Leatherwood's going to be below expectations just because expectations are kind of astronomical for where he was taking and the situation he came into. So.
Yes. I don't know what to say besides yes. The fact that we didn't share it, I just typed him in and I'm like, okay, I'm going to just delete this real quick. I agree in it, and it's so, okay, disclaimer here also, right? It's like you have to factor in what the overall expectations are, but also truly what you believe the expectations should be, and that's what you're speaking off of. So it's not the fact that, for at least what I believe, is it's not the fact that we or people thought we reached. It's not the fact that and then whatever, but it's like, hey, listen, I didn't see him as number 17 overall, right? It's like I didn't see him there, and he was taken there, and then what's that expectation? So you might have not seen him at 17, you could have seen him at 28, I don't know, right? But That's what it's based off. And I agree. It's like, I don't think he's going to be, he's not, I just don't think he's going to be that. And I think that it's going to be exactly, it's going to be similar to Colton Miller in a sense where the expectations were high and then he didn't perform and then he gradually increases. But I think it's going to be a different way where Colton Miller was like a project. I think we're going to see some consistency and then see some okayness, but I think it's just going to be okay, right? And like you mentioned, position switching, things like that. I think that's fair. And that was my answer. So I'm just going to,
sorry.
No, don't be. I mean, it's just, you're in my dome. So for mine, I'm going to go based off of, once again, contract, my expectations, what I see. I think it's Yannick. Sorry. I understand the reason to be optimistic. I understand the reason to say this was our number one free agent pickup. Okay. I don't think we overpaid for him, by the way. I don't think it was astronomical. I disagree with a lot, and that's Javon Walker. But whatever. I thought of Javon Walker, but
still hurts Steve.
It does. I still cry at night. But I just think that it's going to be twofold. So there's the expectation that he's a savior, and he's not. He's just not going to be, and I hope he is, and proves me wrong. And I don't think he's if he's going to be that, he has the level of talent to actually show that, and he hasn't shown that. So it's like he was someone who capitalized on a market and a need, and he was valued there. And I think it's good value, but I don't think it's outstanding. So I would just say that he's a speed rusher. Okay, so he's a speed rusher off the edge, and that's someone that he has moves, great, and he has experience, and he has been productive. But also, I don't take his production as the truth necessarily. Like, I think it's been he's been opportunistic. I think he's just capitalized on certain things of being. I don't know. I don't buy it, and I think that there's a reason that he's bounced from the Jaguars to Vikings and to the Ravens. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. And then even like the Ravens value talent and overall, I guess not depth, but necessarily just like truly someone that can elevate them. And he was just like, he was expendable. He's been expendable. So why has he been expendable? And I don't think he truly offers that. And I'm not comparing him to Khalil Mack, but if you think about it, it's like, okay, you can set the edge, you can play the run, you can power rush, you can speed rush. He's at the upper echelon, so I don't expect that of him, nor did we pay that, but why should we look at him that way? So I think there's good reason, and the reason that I'm saying this is because it's more of an optimistic view of where Max is going to go, where Clee's going to go, and I think we have some depth that's going to just say, hey, he's kind of just going to be who he is, and maybe he's a starter for 17 games, and it's new saying 17 instead of 16. But
man, that's going to be wild.
Yeah, especially in our predictions. By the way.
Man. Numbers. I'm going to forget how to do math.
Yeah. I'm like 9-7. You're like, what about the last game?
Yeah,
that's it. But no, I just don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna bring what the level of expectation is for how we're looking at him, and how I look at him is just like, I don't know. I hope you are, but I don't think he will be. So, I think he's gonna be fine. I think he's gonna have good production. I think he's gonna be good. I don't think he's gonna flame out. Right? I don't think he's gonna be a miss by any means. But sorry, I don't think he's gonna bring what we think he is or what we paid for him necessarily. And still not a bad contract, but you have to pay to get at the end of the day. So
yeah, I hear you. And if you look back at like, okay, so when was he elite? 2017 on that Jaguars defense that took them to the playoffs. That was like they nowhere near like should be a team in the playoffs. You look at their offense, but he had Calais Campbell, and he capitalized off of having good talent around him, and he's very talented. He's very, like you said, speed rusher. I think he had 12.5 sacks that year, and then he got the bag, and then I think the whole situation with the Ravens, it was semi-unique because they were in like, he was really just there to be a renter. You know what I mean? He was on a rental deal, something to help them, make a playoff push, maybe could a little change, help him out and get him back to where he was or whatnot. But I think you're completely right in the sense of like, he very much has capitalized on the situation that he's been in that 12 and a half sack type career is not something that has, been consistent or been something that has, at least been close to that type of elevation year in and year out. So
Yeah,
I'm excited for it because it's obviously a lot
I am
more
too.
talent. So
Yeah.
it's going to be great to see. Hopefully it helps, free up Max again. And hopefully it helps, if Klee plays inside a little bit more too, and it just helps, free up everybody else would be fantastic. But I do agree with you that I feel like people think he's going to come in and be a savior.
Yeah,
And
let me
might
just
not be
end
able
this on an optimistic note. It's like I think he's going to do all those things. He's going to
Yeah.
free up Max to where it's like, hey, if you're the hottest cheerleader, you're going to be the most hit on, right? So Max is getting double teamed where he's good and really good, but not there at that level where he should be. But he was just the best, right? And so you add talent, and that's going to free him up. So there's value in that. Okay, same thing like you said with Cleve, maybe getting him to his true position in that sense. But I'm just saying, okay, look at the production. Look at 12 and a half sacks and say, were you the guy at 12 and a half sacks? Okay, then great. Then you're great. But Calais Campbell, Miles Jack, Jalen Ramsey. So it's like, okay, Jalen Ramsey plays aggressive press corner, right? So you want to get it out because you have pressure in your face with Calais Campbell. You want to throw away from Jalen Ramsey. So it's like you're not even he's your third or fourth priority of thought in a sense. So I think he took advantage of situations on the field and also off the field, and good to him. But anyways, just
Yes.
hammering on your point that you made. So
No.
on par with expectations.
Yeah.
Just exactly what we thought they would be, and I think that's a very good and positive thing. So what do you got?
Yeah. Player that I think is going to be exactly who we thought they were is going to be Trayvon Moehrig, drafted 43 overall, safety at a TCU this year. I think that we are expecting him to come in and be the center fielder on the back end of our defense, the ball hawking center fielder that is going to let Abrams play closer up in the box and kind of free up that back end and be a high end elite level talent back there that we just haven't had, that we've been plugging Eric Harris's and Devin Levitt's or whatever in all these names, plugging these guys in. And we're going to have that fast, rangy, quarterbacks are going to think twice when trying to air it out over the middle because he's going to be back there type of thing. I think he's going to be exactly what we brought him in to be. I think it's going to help that we just haven't had that type of talent back there in a long time. So it's going to be very flattering seeing, someone with his talent back there. And there's going to be, obviously probably some growing pains because if there was one knock on him, it's the, he's so good at his instincts and whatnot that some freelancing kind of got him in trouble a little bit, not much, but I think he's going to get back there.
You may have said that.
You may have said that.
In a very negative way, and we're dropping like, I love him. So he's super awesome.
Yeah, but anyways, so I think he's going to go back there and he's going to be exactly what we brought him in to be, and it's going to be a breath of fresh air, and it's going to be. I think we're going to enjoy having him back there, and it's going to be because he's talented, but also a decent amount because we just haven't had a talent like that back there. So
I think if he's on par with expectations, that's like fantastic for our draft history. So
yeah.
No, I agree. And you're just that good where I was like, I'm like, more racist.
Really? Oh my God.
Well, no, it was like,
you get to go first next time.
No. I actually really
promise
like this.
You're not going to have my guy for this one. This next one.
Well, you can't pick John Simpson, just so you know.
That's right. I forgot.
Okay. So yeah, I had Moehrig there. I also had, one or two other guys, but here we are. So for mine on par with expectations, I'm going to cheat. So I apologize, but I do believe it's going to be a combination. I had a hard time deciding between the two. Casey Hayward and Solomon Thomas for different reasons. So I think Hayward is going to bring the veteran leadership. He's going to be solid. He's going to be elite. He's consistent and reliable. I think he's going to bring that. I don't expect the all-pro Casey Hayward, but I don't anticipate him just being like, oh, he just flared out or whatever, right? And then Solomon Thomas is just going to bring the depth. I think he's going to bring us a little bit more that we expect, based on the situation and kind of opportunity to capitalize. So I think both of them are going to be right where we need them to be, right where I expect them to be, and kind of on par with the expectations. So that was less long-winded than my Yannick one. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to cheat. So.
No, you're good. I like that because that's another one where if you say, Casey Hayward is exactly who, we brought him in to be, I think that's fantastic because we're bringing him in to be a veteran presence that is also going to produce and, be a starting cornerback. So to round it out for this last one from me is going to be the new face that is going to exceed expectations. And for me, that's going to be defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson. And here's why. Because this dude has never quite lived up to his expectations, which is a terrible reason to pick that guy. But for just about majority of his career, he's always been a rotational guy, but has always produced when he's gotten the chance to produce and get in there. He's not some big hubbubalug that's going to plug up the middle. But what he is very good at is collapsing the pocket and pressuring the quarterback. And I think if we can get, the right type of rotation going and get him in to capitalize on certain situations, it's not going to be hard to outdo what our defensive tackles did last year, seeing as how none of them outside of Haskins are even there anymore. But I think that another thing that we've been needing for so long is someone in the middle of the field that can collapse the pocket and put pressure on it. And, this guy's not good at everything, but he's really good at one thing. And that one thing is what we need, most out of our D tackles for the most part. So I think that bringing him in as, his expectation is filler guy who is actually going to come in and produce a lot more than the expectation of just being a rotational person. So, and I think that's what he's going to be as a rotational person, but I think he's going to ball out when he gets a chance. So.
Love it. I hadn't even considered him. So
no one did.
I mean, to be quite honest, I feel like free agency was so long ago that
I know.
I forgot we got that guy. And
absolutely.
No, I think that's great. I think once again, it's where he was, what he's brought in to be, and the opportunity to capitalize on bigger things. I think that's, I think I see it too, and I agree with you there. But wasn't one of my choices, and I respect you for that, even though you read my mind before. So I was battling between two here, and this was Kenyon Drake and another gentleman. And so Drake, I do think that I have higher expectations of, and I just think he's going to be in that middle tier where it's really based off usage. It's based off of obviously health, but also, like how can we really incorporate him into our offense? So I didn't select him. I selected John Brown strictly because three things is contract, 1 year, $4 million. Great. His past production, but also Gruden doesn't just if anything, Gruden is like, oh man, I don't know about Edwards. And he just gets off Brian Edwards for no reason and doesn't give him a chance. And then he just goes with the veterans. So I think he's always going to get the reps and the chances and be in the slot and be in the rotation at least. So I think he's going to just excel based on that and the trust factor with Carr and the trust factor with Gruden because he's ultimately that calls the shots. So, and then another thing is that it's just, I really believe he can be Nelson Aguilar. That is, and it's funny to say that, but his production was incredible last year, Aguilar for us. And so I think he can really be that guy and be that trusted person who has a little bit more top end speed, who has a little bit more explosiveness in the pass game. And Aguilar was more of a opportunistic person that once he got confidence and once he got that stuff, it was great. And then, but really where you saw the flashes of him was down the field. And I think Brown does that. And also he does it in the intermediate and the short routes too. So he's going to complement Renfro well, where you can actually flip him and have Renfro take a shot deep and Brown in between and then flip him again, right? And then also you have Ruggs and you have Edwards, et cetera. So Waller obviously incorporates there. So I think he's going to be someone that is going to be, and I guess the fourth factor is like availability is huge, and he has had some injury histories, but so has our receiving core. It's been one of the least reliable position groups of the Raiders in general. So it's always like, oh, who's up next? Oh, all right, let's trot out Marcel Aitman. Sounds great, so I think he's going to be someone that exceeds expectations based on the contract. And also it's just like, there's not a lot of hype. It's like, oh, he's kind of winding down. But I think if you look at DC's strengths, but also really his tendencies, he trusts where he goes with the ball is really about trust and kind of who he can rely on. I think that's going to be one of those guys, and I think you can see a lot of production. So John Brown, not a flavor choice. I thought you were going Darius Stills, by the way.
Yeah.
For a second, but
if we did this post 53-man roster come out and just like kind of just made sure he was there, maybe. But yeah, I like that. I was intrigued at taking him there as well. I feel like going with the receivers, it would be weird to pick a receiver to do what we expect them to do, because we just don't know what to expect out of the receivers for the most part, especially new ones coming in. We're hoping that our young guys grow and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, John Brown was very much like, could have put him on either end of the exceeding or going.
Correct. Exactly. And that's why I'm like, I'll just be optimistic. And sorry, last thing about this is like, when we signed him, I was like, whatever, right? Like, it was fine. And like, there was other guys out there, there's Galladay, there's different people that were like, oh, maybe we could make a move here. And then there's the Julio rumors and things like that. But I was like, I think this could turn out to be like, because we don't know, at least we know with him, right? And then, so that is going to, week in and week out, the definition of who he is and what he brings is always going to be there. And I think that's going to add some clarity, consistency, and production ultimately. So